Purnima, some pani.
Press the bell icon on YouTube and don't miss another update.
Namaste and welcome to this 10 p.m. Super Jaipur Dialogues. And today I have a very well-known personality. All of you know him very well, so I won't really need to introduce him much. This is General GD Bakshi, who served as the divisional commander in the 16 Corps area. I think that was your last posting, sir. Welcome to Jaipur Dialogue.
Thank you for having me.
And before we start, a few pointers to the viewers. I know that you are all used to unlimited questions, but we will have 20 questions today. 20 questions, and that's all. So please think carefully before asking any questions, because any irrelevant question I will pass over. So please ask relevant questions which are relevant to the topic that we have. And the topic that we have today is regarding our freedom. Of course, I was having a conversation with General Bakshi, and I used to call it the Transfer of Power Day, 15th August 1947. He calls it the Dominion Day. So that was the freedom that we got on 15th August 1947, and whether we got it due to the non-violent movement of Mahatma Gandhi, or whether we got it due to other strategic compulsions, or by way of the national unity that was fostered by Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. I say that in the context of his book, which he has written, this most recent book, Gandhi or Bose, Who Got Us Freedom. And I will display the cover also. And I will also give you the link. In fact, the link is already displayed in the comment section. So anybody who is interested in buying that book can go to that and buy that book. Sir, I start with something that you've written in the very first. I have these contents before me. So in the prologue, which you say that defining the civilizational context of the debate, you quoted Sir John Seeley. And that struck me as something very, very important. So can we hear you on that? Because I think that is one of the anchoring portions of this whole debate.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on Jaipur Dialogues. It's indeed a privilege to reach out to such an august audience. What I would like to point out is that few countries have had their sense of self, their identity as a people so comprehensively destroyed as we in India. Firstly, we had 600 years of invasions and Muslim rule. Let me put no gloss on it. You know, the Afghans, the Arabs, the Central Asians, the Iranians, one after another. 600 years of rape, loot, murder, burning of your cities, slaughtering of your people, and some estimates put it at about 60 million Indians, which have been killed over a period of about 600 years. And at the end of it, what you learn as a civilization, if you've learned non-violence, how to turn the other cheek, then I can only express sheer disgust for a people who had their women raped, sold off in brothels. You ingested from there the philosophy of turning the other cheek. I mean, it beggars the imagination. So 600 years of Muslim rule. Then let me be quite straightforward. The British didn't come out and throw the Mughals. We did. There was an Indian military revival here. The Sikhs under Guru Gobind Singh, the Marathas under Shivaji, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, and the Assamese under General Lachit Borphukan. They destroyed the Mughal Empire. Well before the British had come, the Mughal Empire had been reduced to a mufassil confined to Delhi and the Red Fort. All right? Let's have no doubts on that. Then came the British. Of all the people who have ruled us, you know, the others, the Mughals who came, the Afghans who came, the Turks who came, the Turco-Mongols who came, they Indianized themselves. You know, more or less they took on our form of music, our form of dance, this, that, and they tried to make themselves more acceptable to their people they were ruling. But they Indianized. They became Indian. They settled down. They cut off all contact with their home country. You know, they did not colonize you. They became part of it. But it is the British who absolutely refused to Indianize. And to the contrary, after the revolt of 1857, when they got a shock, when all the races of India, all the diverse castes and creeds combined to throw the British out. Had they revolted, you know, there were 80,000 soldiers who joined that revolt, that first war of independence. Had they revolted together, the British Empire would have been history. But they revolted separately, they had no central leadership, and you know, the British easily crushed this rebellion. Once they crushed this rebellion, they said, we will ensure that it never happens again. Identify every fault line in the body politic of the Indian society, whether based on, you know, religion, language, ethnicity, race, what have you. And you know which is the deepest fault line that they found, the most extensive fault line? Caste. Ladies and gentlemen, caste. And it was Sir John Seeley who said famously, as long as there is caste, there will be no India. Hear that again. As long as there is caste, there will be no India. And no sense of India. So, you know, in every commissionerate, in every collectorate, in every gazetteer, they had to record the various castes that exist there. Which caste do you belong to, which gotra, which varna. You had to legitimize yourself in the eyes of the British colonial administration, you had to list it out. The first caste-based census in India was held in 1872, again by Sir John Seeley. And this caste was the central construct of the colonial empire, the central axis of fracturing, fragmenting Indian society into tiny, tiny, tiny silvers, and one was made to fight the other so that the British could rule. The British came up with a construct of imperial justice. They said India was never a nation state. Churchill scoffed at the idea of India as a nation. He says, can the equator be the basis of a nation state? The Madrasis, the Musalmans, the Punjabis, the Bengalis of India, can they ever come together? No, they can't. They are such a squabbling race of people at one another's throat that it requires, listen to this, it requires a foreign power to rule impartially. Any Indian ruler will be partial to his own set of people, and therefore he will not be an impartial ruler. Therefore, he requires foreign people to rule. That was the concept of imperial justice. Ladies and gentlemen, the great pity is that even after we became independent, we carried on with the constructs of caste. All your bloody elections are held on the basis of caste arithmetic till this day. What is Mandal? But a economic imperative being added to the caste system. Your sub-identity is far more important than your national identity. Your sub-identity of caste overrides every bloody thing every yourself have got. It is which will be the deciding factor not only for entry into colleges and higher education, but for jobs. And now people want reservation in promotions, and they want reservation to be extended to the private sector. Ambedkar had wanted it for a temporary period of a few decades at best. now it looks like it will last for the next 5 to 7,000 years. A device resuscitated by the British. Caste had lost all relevance. When a society industrializes, caste is an agricultural phenomenon. It loses all relevance when you urbanize, when you industrialize. In a metro, can you bloody well ask somebody sitting next to you, what is your caste? Show me your Janayu. I mean, that's utter nonsense. It was atrophying, it was dying out. The British revived it to divide you, to rule you. They have gone, but that division persists. That division persists till this day. It has only been deepened by the leaders of independent India. And on that we will talk a little more. Would you like it to be in Q&A form, or you want me to continue?
No. We will have a dialogue for about 30 minutes, and then we will throw it into Q&A. Because I wanted you to reflect on this, because you also mentioned that it was actually the caste that successfully saved the Indian civilization. That's what you've written in your prologue as well. So it did serve a very useful purpose earlier on, but yes, it should have a kind of a trophy, which it was doing when the British revived it. This is what your contention. Now let us come to the central question of the freedom movement, because that is what your book deals with. And you have reflected on the freedom movement, and you have also mentioned the relevance of or the total non-relevance of the Quit India movement in 1942, because the Quit India movement in 1942 had some very, very strange origins. It was never meant to be so. And the Cripps Commission had come. The Cripps Commission was dealing with the questions that the Indians were throwing at them. And the Congress, in fact, went so far as to, I was discussing the 1942 Quit India movement. The Congress, in fact, what it did was that when the Cripps Commission came, and the Cripps Commission had this provision of the provinces seceding, then the CWC actually adopted that resolution. It was Pattabi Sitaramaiah, who was the great favorite of Mahatma Gandhi, who was actually given the tip to move that resolution in the CWC meeting. It was passed. And then there was a lot of ferment within Congress. In the AICC meeting, Chakravarti Rajgopalachari moved a counter resolution. That was also passed. And even then, Mahatma Gandhi, Pandit Nehru, and the then President Abul Kalam Azad, all of them said that it had no bearing. And when there was a lot of counter movement started by Hindu Mahasabha, Savarkar, Dr. Ambedkar, a lot of others, at that time they came up and they started losing sheen, they started losing credibility. Then they came up with the Quit India movement. So this is what my reading of the origin of the Quit India movement is. And you have a lot to say on Quit India movement, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that very relevant interjection. What I would like to point out is that, you see, in 1956, Lord Clement Attlee, the last Prime Minister, who was the Prime Minister of Britain from 1945 to 1950, he was the man who signed the so-called Independence Act, of India, 1947. He had come to India and he was the guest of the Governor of West Bengal, then Justice P.B. Chakrabarti. Justice Chakrabarti had a long dialogue with him over 2 days. And he has recorded that dialogue. And he asked him some very blunt and straightforward questions. He said the Quit India movement launched by Mahatma Gandhi had totally failed. It had been decisively crushed because the British used 59 Gora Paltan, British battalion, Australian, New Zealand, Canadian. They did not use Indian troops because they were not sure what would be the reaction of Indian troops now in suppressing their own people. So they used British troops. They crushed the Congress movement. Every single Congress leader from Gandhi downwards was thrown into jail, and in jail Gandhiji went on fast. And that is the time Churchill passed orders. Why is this man not dead? Let him die. Let him carry on with his bloody fast. So लोगों ने हाथ पैर जोड़े गांधी जी के, गांधी जी रियाया बदल गई है, अब आपका फास्ट वगैरह कुछ नहीं करेगा, we need you, kindly break your fast. He had to break his fast in prison. He had to cut a very humble, very sorry figure. And unfortunately for him, Kasturba Gandhi passed away, great anchor in his life. And when Gandhiji came out of prison, God knows what the British did to him. He was a broken man. Broken man. Right? And the Congress was demoralized. The people had forgotten who Nehru was, who Patel was, who Maulana Azad was. And, then Gandhiji gave an interview to certain papers. You should read that interview. He said, look, I have no further authority about the freedom struggle. I cease to be president. I cease to be anybody in the Congress. That has been dissolved. I'm sorry, I am nobody. They said, will you support the war effort? He said, yes, I will. And he was a broken man. The freedom struggle was all over. So Justice P.B. Chakrabarty asked Prime Minister Clement Attlee, you had broken the back of the Quit India movement. 1940 World War. 1.5 years later, 1947, why did you run? Why did you leave in such a tearing hurry? Lord Clement Attlee nodded. He just put up his finger, said 3 words. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, Indian National Army. He says a central pillar of the British colonial empire was the loyalty of the British Indian Army, which normally used to be about 300 to 350,000. But in wartime, they had been expanded in the Second World War to the largest all-volunteer army in the history of the world, 2.5 million, 25 lakhs. The present strength of the Indian Army is 13 lakhs, 1.3 million. It was 2.5 million, 25 lakh strong Indian Army. And you know how many were the Gora troops? In wartime, they were about 80,000. After the war went, they all wanted to go home. So there were just 40,000 British troops in India and 25 lakh Indian soldiers who had fought the Germans, the Japanese, the Italians, beaten them all, combat hardened, battle ready, now with their own officers. 1857, we had only Sepoys and Naiks and Havaldars, right? In 45, we had officers who had reached the rank of brigadier. Karyappa was a brigadier. Thamaiya and his colleagues were colonels, right? Majors, captains, lieutenants. We had about 25,000 Indian officers because the army had to be Indianized to be able to meet those manpower requirements. So he said we had lost because of Bose, though he had lost the battle of Kohima and Imphal. He had totally destroyed the loyalty of the Indian soldier to the Raj. We were not at all sure if we asked the Indian troops to fire on the Indian, if they would obey. Even the Gurkhas, there were indications, would not fire. Don't forget the Gurkhas had been used to fire in Jallianwala Bagh. Even if the Gurkhas would fire. So he said with 40,000, even if the 25 lakh demobilizing, they were being demobilized. The Indian army was reduced from 25 lakhs to 3 lakhs and then divided between India and Pakistan. This is what the last gift of the British. They totally, disarmed you, right? And he said that even if they had thrown stone, we would have been finished. They were so scared, you see, and what happened was that they made a cardinal error. So far, because of wartime censorship, very little information of the Azad Hind Fauj had reached the Indian public. Now that they had won the war and they were all prisoners, they said this is the time to rub the Indian noses in the ground. Like you see, after World War I, when we had 13 lakh Indian soldiers, 80,000 had died, we thought the British would be grateful to us, that they would, give us dominion status or home rule or whatever other bakwas that you wanted. You know what the British gave you? Jallianwala Bagh. Where did they give it to you? In Punjab, from where the bulk of the Indian troops who had fought the World War came. You think they said you think you bloody Kalus, you did us a favor? We will shoot you if you don't. And they actually did it, and that was the turning point. Thereafter, Gandhiji had come, started a mass-based movement. Gandhiji deserves credit for creating a mass-based, peasant-based movement that he took to the villages rather than the towns and the very rich lawyers of the cities. But he kept it non-violent. And the British were very happy that he kept it non-violent. It suited their purpose. They were shit scared of another Ghadar 1857 uprising in which their British men, women, children would all be slaughtered. So they wanted India to be kept peaceful, and Gandhiji, wittingly or unwittingly, was used. Why was he given such a media build-up? By the British Empire. Because they wanted to tell their subject, this is the way to fight with us. Humko beg karo, implore karo, appeal to our good nature, fast yourself, you fast. You go without food. And we will see, we are very benign people, etc., etc. It suited the British. So they fostered Gandhianism. They gave it so much media coverage. They exported Gandhian ideas all over their colony. This is the way to fight us if you want to, because of this we will never go. They were very sure they could handle non-violence. So they had encouraged Gandhi, they had built him up, larger than life, and that cost us dearly. It was Netaji who realized in the late 30s that the British would not go, that freedom is not begged and received as a gift, it has to be fought for. And the center of gravity of British rule is the loyalty of the Indian Sipahi to the British master. As long as that holds, the British Empire will last. The day that loyalty ends, the British rule is over. 40,000 Britishers, what can they do to 3.5 lakh Indian soldiers? And in World War II, 25 lakh Indian soldiers battle hardened. So, when they, after 45, they held a trial to rub the nose of the INA and the Indians into the crowd. They held a trial at Red Fort of 3 officers, 1 Muslim, 1 Sikh, and 1 Hindu. That was Shahnawaz Khan, Dhillon, and Sehgal. And they publicized the trial to show the Indians that you tried to fight for freedom. And you know that the INA had a strength of 60,000. Do you know that 26,000 of them had died fighting for your freedom?
Right.
You have the call to call that struggle non-violent. You know the entire casualties of the Indian army of 13 lakhs from 47 to date is 25,000. 60,000 gave a sacrifice of 26,000. 44% of that force died fighting. And it's only a people as wretchedly ungrateful as the bloody Indians who could forget this. Not one stone to their memory, all right? Not one line. But there are statues of Gandhi all over. Every nook and cranny is crammed with those statues. There's not one stone. The INA had built a memorial for its foreign warriors in Singapore. After Second World War end, 45, Nehru had gone to Singapore to meet the Indian community. They said, why don't you come and pay respects at the INA memorial? They fought for us. Because of them, we might get freedom. So Nehru wanted to go. Mountbatten said, you will not go. He sent the army engineers They put dynamite and they blasted that war memorial of the Azad Hind Fauj. And you know something? In 1984, the Indian community in Singapore collected money, rebuilt that war memorial. But it is only in mainland India that we are shameless enough not to build one. एक पत्थर नहीं खड़ा किया था, 26,000 जो शहीद हुए, एक पत्थर आपने खड़ा नहीं किया है, इससे ज्यादा, and so ungrateful, because you have been fed a pack of lies so that one particular family could rule. You see, they held a trial, and the moment they held that trial and they put it all over the press, they thought they would humiliate and scare the hell out of the Indians. They would hang these blighters like Mangal Pandey had been blown up on a gun, and they had hung all the those who had revolted in 1857. But there was an explosion in India, in Kolkata, in Delhi, in Lahore, in Karachi, in Mumbai. All over India, there were riots. The people were so inflamed and angry. And when they learned there was actually an Indian army, an Azad Hind Fauj, which had fought for Indian freedom, not begged. तलवे नहीं चाहते अंग्रेजों के, लड़े, जान दे दी, अपनी कुर्बानी सर की दे दी. They were thrilled. And they wanted to humiliate them, and they wanted to hold that trial in Red Fort. Why? Because Delhi, Delhi jayenge, Lal Kile pe Tiranga fehrayenge was the nara of the Azad Hind Fauj. And the British wanted to humiliate you, so they held the trial in the Red Fort. In the dungeons of the Red Fort, the INA prisoners were tortured. And they wanted to hang them in the Red Fort. When the explosion took place, riots started in Kolkata. And for the first time, the governors of the various provinces wrote back to Delhi, साहब क्या हो रहा है हमें मालूम नहीं, पुलिस फायर खोलती है and the crowds don't stop, they just keep surging on and on, पुलिस वाले मारे गए. That is the time they received intelligence that there is going to be a revolt in the armed forces. That is the time Lord Wavell was the viceroy. That is the time Field Marshal Auchinleck was the commander-in-chief. He had served all his life in the British Indian Army. Wavell had served in the British Indian Army. They knew this army well. They knew the mood, the ugly mood, right? And Auchinleck wrote to Wavell, we have got those letters. We sent Dr. Kalyan Dey to London to the Transfer of Power archives. We have got every letter of every single decision maker in my book. I have not cited those letters, sir. I have photocopied them and put the original letters there. You can read them for yourself. And you know what Auchinleck said? We have 18 months. Beyond that, we will not be in control of events. Let us go out with our izzat intact. He had made contingency plans of how the British troops would escort the families to the airfields, to the ports, and they would fight last-ditch battles as the families were flown out, as the British officers and their ladies were flown out of India. And that is called Plan Operation Gondola. And General Sinha saw those in the Military Operations Directorate when he was posted. Okay? That is the bloody truth. They were so worried. So London at that time was far away from all this riot, all these turbulence. They told Viscount Wavell, Field Marshal Wavell, you old men seem to have lost your nerve. You know what Wavell wrote back? He said, if His Majesty think that I have lost my nerve, it is your duty to change me. Right now. But you ignore my advice at your own peril. Then they were shaken. How many troops do you need if the revolt takes place? You know, there are letters, exchanges. How many divisions do you need? How will they come? What cover? The very fact that we are bringing in additional troops will show the Indian army that they are not trusted. And they will just trigger the revolt we want to avoid. All this is there in writing, sir. So far, London was holding strong and Delhi had seen the writing on the wall. February 1946. I don't know how many of you know. There was a revolt in the Royal Indian Navy. Out of 80 ships, sailors on 79 ships, 29,000 sailors revolted, sir, revolted against the British. They brought down the British Union Jack. They brought down the British Union Jack. They put up the Tiranga. They went round the streets of Mumbai and Karachi with portraits of Netaji shouting Jai Hind, Jai Hind. और कोई भी जो अंग्रेज अफसर या मैडम जा रहे थे टिक्का गाड़ी में नीचे उतारा और बोला बोलो जय हिंद, बोलो जय हिंद. You understand? That shook the bloody empire. They knew it was all over, and they removed Lord Wavell, Khundak. But they sent Mountbatten, get us out of here fast before we are driven out, before a tamasha erupts before the whole world, before हमारे 40, 80, 90 हजार जो अंग्रेज आदमी औरत बच्चे रह गए हैं, they are slaughtered. Slaughtered! And what was the Congress used for that time, do you know? Nehru was sent to placate the mutineers, those who had mutinied against, those who had revolted against the British. नहीं नहीं, please surrender कर दो, surrender. ये contribution.
दे दी हमें आजादी बिना खड़ग बिना ढाल.
बिना खड़ग बिना ढाल. अरे साहब कमाल ही है साहब. ऐसा फरेब, ऐसा collective फरेब, ऐसा fraud upon a people, collaborators of the Raj. You see, the pity was we got Azadi due to the Azad Hind Fauj and Netaji. But the power was not given to them. Power was given to the collaborators of the empire, who had gone around begging the people, the soldiers who were revolting, please आप हथियार डाल दो, प्लीज आप अंग्रेजों के सामने हथियार डाल दो, कोई बात नहीं हम देख लेंगे. ये तो हाल है साहब. इन लोगों को राज दिया गया.
Some army units had also revolted, I believe.
Army units in Jabalpur at the end of February 1946 revolted. There was revolt in the Royal Indian Air Force. They had started. The revolt started with the signals and the EME, the technical arms where the people were more well read. And it was going to spread to your infantry and armor and artillery units. That is the time the British Lord Wavell begged, Field Marshal Wavell begged the British Prime Minister, please give them the assurance that we are going to leave. We will be able to hold India only if you tell them, हाँ जी हम तो जा रहे. Only if you tell them that we are going. Give a definite timetable to get the hell out of there. पहले London was differing. Lord Pethick Lawrence, Lord Clement Attlee, because though Churchill had been kicked out, he was still in the opposition, he was doing chan-chan. So they were differing. But when the February revolt took place, first in the Royal Indian Navy, then in the army barracks in Jabalpur, my hometown, and then in the Royal Indian Air Force, it was all over. Mountbatten was called in, sent as the Viceroy, the last Viceroy. And of course, we know the relationship between Nehru and Mountbatten and Lady Mountbatten. All right? And Nehru was suddenly propelled to the center and to the top. The entire Congress Working Committee wanted Sardar Patel as the Prime Minister. The British called Gandhi and said, hey, old man, तुम इनको बोलेगा, आप इनको बोलो, we want Nehru. And so that Congress Working Committee votes were thrown into the dustbin, and Nehru was made the first Prime Minister of India because he was the most loyal, the most pro-British of the entire Congress, lot of leaders, the biggest collaborator. And the first instruction he passed was, Lord Lee Mountbatten will be the first Governor General of independent India. What happened on 15th of August? You were not given independence, sir. Lord Louis Mountbatten passed the order, the Union Jack will not be brought down. You are getting dominion status, you just put up your tiranga jo aapne chढ़ा. In Pakistan, which also became a dominion, India was broken into two and partitioned. In fact, into three pieces and partitioned. And the Pakistanis at least had the decency to appoint one of their own, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, as the first Governor General. But we appointed Lord Louis Mountbatten. And the first order that Lord Louis Mountbatten passed was not one soldier of the INA will be taken back into the Indian army. All their pension and backdated pay will be stopped. They were left to starve on the streets. They were to be treated as traitors, and the Nehru government treated them as traitors and to justify their rule. कि तुमने क्या किया है हमको राज करने के लिए, मलाई खाने के लिए? आजादी तो साहब हमारी वजह से आई. ये तो कोई थे ही नहीं. 26,000 तो कुत्ते थे, नाली के कीड़े थे साहब. मर गए, क्या फर्क पड़ता? क्या फर्क पड़ता? पेंशन रोक के रखो. गद्दार हैं, अंग्रेजी हुकूमत के खिलाफ बगावत करने की जरूरत करी ये काले कुत्तों ने. ये आपकी असलियत. किसी सेल्फ रिस्पेक्टिंग आदमी का सर शर्म से झुक जाए कि हमने क्या कुछ बेवकूफ हमारा बनाया गया, किस तरह इतिहास को तोड़ मरोड़ कर पेश किया. कोर्ट हिस्टोरियन, चाटुकार, चमचे, इन्होंने इतिहास लिखना शुरू किया भारत का. विपिन चंद्रा जी ने 650 पेज की हिस्ट्री ऑफ द इंडियन फ्रीडम स्ट्रगल लिखी है. कितने पेज हैं नेताजी और आईएनए पे? जस्ट गेस. 1.5. बाकी सारा नेहरू, गांधी. वो खाना नहीं खाए साहब 3 दिन. वो जेल गए साहब, और जेल में उन्होंने फर्स्ट क्लास प्रिजनर स्टेटस मांगा. वो अंग्रेजी कमोड मांगा, अखबार मांगी, पढ़ने लिखने का टेबल मांगा. अरे जेल थी साहब या ऐश मुकाम? ये क्या बकवास है साहब. और जब नेताजी को जेल में डाला था, मार मार के टॉर्चर किया गया, ट्यूबरकुलोसिस हो गया उसको डंजन में, फिर भी वो लड़ा. दैट वो शेर. बट द पिटी इज कि अंग्रेजों को खदेड़ा आजाद हिंद फौज ने. अंग्रेज गए, नेताजी और आजाद हिंद फौज के बदले, क्योंकि द लॉयल्टी ऑफ द इंडियन सोल्जर्स हैड टोटली बीन ब्रोकन बाय नेताजी, who had clearly identified the center of gravity of British rule in India is the loyalty of the British Indian army to the British. As long as that loyalty remains, they will. And that division on caste and creed, that was the British way of rule. ICS को बोला IAS, रही तो ICS ना था. अंग्रेजों के चमचे, अंग्रेजों की जूतियां यहां रह गई. And therefore you created a curriculum of education. Macaulay had designed the curriculum to produce clerks for the empire. You continue. You see, and the simple fact is that because of this, you have taken the British India Act of 1935, and your constitution, if you go para by para, is almost a reprint of the British Indian Act of 1935, yes, except that for the concept of imperial justice, you have changed it to social justice. आप मुझे बताइए, liberty, fraternity, equality are the cornerstones of a democracy. But हमारा जो preamble of the constitution to give to our citizens social justice, इंपीरियल जस्टिस हटा के सोशल जस्टिस की. आप तो कास्ट में बटे हुए कुत्ते हो, कुत्तों की तरह एक दूसरे को खाते रहते हो, मारते काटते रहते हो, तो आपको सोशल जस्टिस देना पड़ेगा. वो अभी तक अंग्रेज देते थे. अंग्रेज चले गए तो एक ब्राउन अंग्रेज, एक नेहरू खानदान ही है एकमात्र जो आपको सोशल जस्टिस देगा, कास्ट और कास्ट की लड़ाई को रोक के रखेगा, सबको बराबर रिप्रेजेंटेशन देगा. जो वीक हैं, जो हिस्टोरिकली डिप्राइव्ड हैं, उनको हम बैलेंस करेंगे, रिजर्वेशन देंगे. अरे साहब, अंग्रेजों ने इतनी रिजर्वेशन नहीं दी जितनी की आपने दी है. 50% of the Indian population is under the reserved category. So what happens to those poor 50%? who had the mistake of being born in a particular caste. Why is caste important? Who said it is important? Why is it not over? The Sikh Guru said caste is your basic problem. Finish caste. They started Singh. Everyone will be named Singh. Khatam. Malhotra, Bakshi, this, that, ye sab khatam karo. You're all Singh. Rishi Dayanand, Swami Dayanand broke caste in the Arya Samaj. Because he said, this is the way the foreigners are ruling. Stop your internecine bitching and fighting, squabbling. But in our elections, we made caste the chief factor. It is so till today, sir. है आज भी कास्ट के ऊपर आपकी इलेक्शन लड़ी जाती है. आप कहां, कैसी आजादी, कौन सी आजादी? फ्रेंकली स्पीकिंग, आपको आजादी कोई 2014 के आसपास मिली है, जब हिंदी बोलने वाले दिल्ली पहुंचे. ये तो सब अंग्रेज हैं साहब. हमारे सब के बच्चे कॉन्वेंट स्कूल में जाते नहीं, तो वो पढ़े लिखे ही नहीं. हिंदी तो देशी भाषा.
Very unfortunate aspects of how our nationhood has progressed, and I think you put it in fair perspective. Now we are almost 40 minutes into the conversation, and I think this is the time to get the questions and answers going, the Q&A going. Switch to Q&A, and before that, I will again display this book, this wonderful book that General Bakshi has written, Bose or Gandhi, Who Got India Her Freedom. And you heard him over 40 minutes speak about the book, and I'm sure that it would be a very rewarding experience for everyone to go into the correct history of India's freedom. At least get to know who got you the freedom. Even if you keep singing Bina Khadak Bina Dhal, even then you must know who got you the freedom. This is the book. This is on Amazon. It's available in both the paperback format, as well as in the Kindle format. And the link is given in the comments here. And now we move to the Q&A. Only 20 questions will be taken. I request my desk to please filter out the irrelevant question. And I also request General Bakshi that please keep the reply short. Otherwise, we will go into 2 hours. Okay, sir. So we move into Q&A.
Press the bell icon on YouTube and don't miss another update.
So the first questions are Nishikant Sharma. Rash Bihari Bose was originally founder of INA. He handed over to Netaji. His original boss. Opinions, sir. So that's correct, actually. So Rash Bihari Bose only handed over the INA to.
That's right. That's right. You see, in the First World War, there was the Hindustan Republican Army, and then they had tried to create the Ghadar movement. They had gotten weapons, etc. from they had got the money from the United States, the expat committee, the expat community of Indians in the US, Canada. They had organized this revolt. They had gotten in touch with the Germans, and their plan also was to come via Southeast Asia and liberate India. Rash Bihari Bose had then this thing, but the British intelligence, along with the American intelligence, had totally penetrated this movement. And unfortunately for us, all the arms consignment, they went, British agents ensured that they landed in the hands of the British. All these people were mostly caught, tortured to death, finished. And that was the end of that movement. But Rash Bihari Bose escaped to Japan. And he built up the seeds of the Indian Independent League there, along with Gyani in Southeast Asia. The expat community they tried to organize. The first INA was raised by Major Fujiwara, later General Fujiwara of the Japanese INA. He was like the Lawrence of Arabia. And from the prisoners of war of the Indians, there were about over 60,000 prisoners that they had captured. With 30,000, they formed the nucleus of the Indian Army under General Mohan Singh. But there were lots of troubles there, etc., because Mohan Singh was just a captain. And those people who were senior to him when they were made junior, there's quite obviously there will be a lot of ranklings and this thing. And So the first INA, there was a lot of trouble between them and the Japanese then disbanded. That is the time the Japanese asked Raj Bihari Bose, "Bhai, kya kare? Who to get to lead?" He said, "Please get Netaji Bose from the Germans. The only man who can lead this army and inspire the people of the diaspora in Southeast Asia is Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose." He was then in Germany. He had escaped from India. He had gone via Russia to Italy, Italy to Germany. He had met Hitler. He had raised an Indesce Legion, a brigade worth of Indian soldiers from the prisoners of war. They had been trained. He had trained along with them. And they wanted to come via Russia, via Afghanistan and invade India. But then the Germans, the tide of war turned and they started getting pushed back from the gates of Moscow. So all hopes of reaching India from that side finished. That is the time the Japanese asked the Germans to hand over Bose. And, initially they had thought they'd send him by air. But they were worried that the British would try and shoot that plane down. They were bent upon killing Netaji anyhow. He was the greatest enemy of the empire. So then he was sent in a submarine from Europe down to South America, the coast of South Africa. This submarine turned to Madagascar. A Japanese submarine was sent from there, and Netaji transferred submarine to submarine in the middle of a sea storm. Sea state fight, 40-foot high waves. He went through in a rubber boat. Look at the courage of that man. He reached Japan and he straight away met the Japanese Minister of War, the foreign minister. He didn't deal with the major level, captain level, colonel level in the Japanese army, straight at the top. He now expanded the Azad Hind Fauj to 3 divisions. Each division had 20,000, right? And 3 divisions were raised, 60,000 were raised, and they also recruited Indians from Malaya and the other Singapore, etc. 60,000 force was raised. He wanted a force of about 2 lakhs, but the Japanese did not allow him.
Right, sir.
And with that, he fought in Impal, Kohima.
We can take the next question now. All the questions will come on the screen also.
Yeah.
Varun Joyal is asking, Namaskar, Sarji, why our Panch Makkar Tattva? Let me explain Panch Makkar. Panch Makkar is 5 M's. Mullah Marxist Missionary, Macaulay Putra, and the media, that is Lutyens media. These are the Panch Makkar. So why are Panch Makkar Tattva never glorify Netaji? Even the later was socialist as per their ideology.
Look, as far as the Marxists are concerned, they hated Netaji. Let me be straightforward. They called him what? You know what is the term they used? Tojo ka kutta. That is the term the Marxists have used against to abuse Netaji. Because the Marxists, under the orders of the Russians, were collaborating with the British. Because they were fighting a war together. Soviet Union was fighting a war together with Great Britain and America. So they collaborated. And that is why they abused Netaji. And you see, the Angrez gaye. अंग्रेजों की दुम आज भी यही है. ये जो मार्क्सिस्ट हैं, लेफ्टिस्ट लिबरल्स हैं, that media, that bureaucracy, all steeped in the traditions of the Raj, they have made sure कि अंग्रेज गए लेकिन उनकी मानसिक सत्ता की गुलामी आज भी जारी है.
Right. The next question, Harshit Pant is, was Hitler a curse of colonized people on Europe? I think this is not relevant question, so I'll pass it over.
No, I will still answer it. You know, a lot of people say, oh, Netaji went to Hitler, mass murderer. What was the British? 7 famines in India. And do you know that the last famine, how many Indians died? The Bengal famine? 3.5 million Indians died. And while they were dying, the British exported grain to their soldiers in Europe. Don't give me that crap. Don't give me that bullshit about Hitler was this and Hitler. Were the British any better? They were as bad for us as Hitler was for the Europeans.
Okay, next one, sir. Tattva Bhuta. We see all old names as just name. When does this last name syndrome adopted Indian system? What is this question? Okay.
No, I think he's talking of the caste system. He's talking of the caste system, I think. So we need to get rid of caste, please. If you want to become a nation, get rid of caste.
Okay. Why
Become
Indian?
all Bhartis. Sorry.
Abhimanyu
Yeah.
Mohite, why Indian Navy mutiny is not taught to us in school?
You are not even told that there was a Azad Hind Fauj of 60,000, out of which 26,000 died. The revolt in the Royal Indian Navy has been brushed out from all books. This is Max Muller, a clerk of the East India Company, wrote, that is still your history. And if you dare change it, Madam Robilla Thapar will get very angry with you. Irfan Habib will kill you. These leftists are the rear guard of the British Empire. They have written your history. They have glorified Nehru Gandhi dynasty, and they have blocked out all name of INA and the 26,000 soldiers who died. All you hear of is हमने लाठी खाई. अरे साहब हमारी भैंस को भी लाठी पड़ती है. That does not mean the भैंस has to be a minister. Thank you.
Okay. Next one. Pram is asking, should India not enforce total population exchange with Pakistan in the next war as wished by Dr. Ambedkar?
No, I'm sorry if you follow Netaji. Let me be very straightforward. Let me be very blunt. He said we are all Indians first and everything else later. Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, Christians, this caste, that caste. You know, he inherited the regiments of the British Indian Army. Punjab regiment, Rajput regiment, Mararwali. He mixed them all India, all class. Koi nahi hoga, only Indians. Right? And it is because of that attitude. Out of his 3 divisional commanders, 2 were Muslims. General Shahnawaz Khan and General Kayani. Father of later General Kayani, chief of the Pakistan Army. Pakistan took back all INA people into its army. India did not, because we were so enamored, so in love with the British. How nice they had been to us.
Okay, so let's go to the next question. I think we just lost him briefly. Are you there, General Bakshi?
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
One second.
You're audible,
One second. There, Purnima, I'll be audible. I hope I'm visible.
Yeah, your picture is frozen, but you're fully audible. So I'm asking the next question.
Oh, so let's go ahead. Let's go ahead.
Yeah. So Nishikant Sharma, impact of Indian Army's role in world wars on struggle of freedom.
A very great role. 1857, who revolted? The Indian Army. First War of Independence, who fought? The Indian Army. The Indian Army served on every battlefield 30.
I think there's a break in connection. So let's wait a while. In the meantime, can we take another question? Omi Yadav, even after winning the election in Congress twice, Gandhi did not allow Netaji to become president. No, that's actually wrong. He won the election in 1938 and he was the president. In 1939, again, he won the election. He was president, but he was not allowed to form his executive committee. And it was because of that, because the Mahatma Gandhi faction, when he took the defeat of Pattabhi Sitaramaiah, his own defeat, and he said as much, then the mood changed within the party and it became very difficult and almost impossible for Netaji to function. And it was then that he resigned. He did not leave the party even at that point. Then he made what is called a forward block within the party. And then that forward block was within the party. And then later on, what they did was what Congress did, that he debarred him from holding any position in the Congress. And then he was arrested by the British. So you can see how it is working. So I was answering a question on your behalf. So,
Thank you.
uh, so that is how it proceeded. That after he made the forward block, then the British arrested him and put him in prison. And as General Bakshi was explaining, that he was put to severe torture. But the Congress did not budge, and it was at that point that he decided that he had to leave. The World War had started. He had been advocating right from the beginning that we should take advantage of the World War and force the British to leave. But then Congress played both ways in 1939. They did not want to go the whole hog, but still they went out of the ministries. So जिसको बोलते हैं न इधर के रहे न उधर के रहे और जिन्ना के लिए पूरी स्पेस छोड़ दी. So we take this question that you were answering when there was a little break. The impact of Indian Army role in world wars on struggle of freedom.
So you see, firstly, because when one American correspondent had said, the only thing Indian about India is the Indian Army. The only thing Indian about India is the Indian Army. And when huge armies were raised by the British because unki jaan pe banai. World War I, they raised 13 lakhs ki Indian Army. World War II, they raised an Indian Army of 25 lakhs. I mean, they were scared of the Japanese. 25 lakh was the largest all-volunteer army in the history of the world. And they went and they fought outside as Indian Division, 4th Indian Division, 7th Indian Division, 14th Indian Division. My God. So, the idea of India was revived by the British, the ones who destroyed unwittingly in creating a huge Indian army. They revived the idea of India, and the same Indian army threw them out. Don't forget that fact. If you are free today, it is because of the revolt that the Royal Indian Navy did against the British. The revolt that had started in the British Indian Army in Jabalpur. And if you had given it a little more time, the whole army would possibly have revolted. You have been made free. The first war of independence was by the armed forces, and the last war that you won and got your freedom was because of your armed forces and not because of this, Bina Khadak, Bina Dhal brigade, who then tried to tell us that we are the most non-violent people in the world. We are all clones of Buddha, and we are the greatest, most peace-loving people. That is why our women were raped. That is why our cities were burnt. But we were so peaceful that we just jodoed our hands and we stood. There are a lot of people who fought.
That's a complete lie, because had we not fought, then we
would not have been where we are. That's right. That is what I'm trying to say. You see, they talk of ahimsa paramo dharma. Do you know where this verse is taken from? From the Mahabharata. But do you know what is the full form? Ahimsa paramo dharma, dharma ahimsa tathaivacha. Ahimsa may be paramo dharma. It is nice not to kill somebody, nice not to wound somebody, but in the defense of the truth, in the defense of the dharma, himsa is jayas. Dharma, himsa, tathaivacha. They have tried to foist upon you a culture of cowardice.
That is Swami Chinmayananda's interpretation, actually. And before we take the next question, I'll request all our viewers, please stop sending questions. We will take only 20 questions, so we already have more than that. So there's no point sending any more questions. So please do not send any more questions. The next question is Sahil Gupta. Is BJP doing enough to bring Sikhs back to the main fold? Mainstream.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Why can't government make tallest statue of King Ranjit Singh like Patel ji? We need to heal the wounds.
We certainly need to heal the wounds. And a very deliberate, very cynical policy was adopted to somehow try and treat the Sikhs as a hated minority, the Jews of India kind of a thing, and the riots that were created, people need to be punished. People need to be punished. I mean, it's not only riots against a particular community A, B, or C that you need to take action. Even the Sikh pogroms in Delhi and elsewhere, those people need to be hanged. They need to be brought to justice. They need to be given closure. Why not? The Sikhs are the people who have fought for us. The Sikhs are an inalienable part of the Indian culture. They are the sword arm of the Indian Republic. They were the sword arm of Hinduism. Let me be very straightforward. My Bhai Mati Das, I am from his family. Bhai Mati Das, who was sawed in half. Bhai Sati Das, who was boiled in a cauldron of oil. And Rati Das, who was wrapped in cotton wool and burnt like a candle. They are my ancestors. Baba Paraga is from our clan. All right. Every family in Punjab had to send the eldest son to the Khalsa to fight. And they were Keshdharis and Namdharis. It is the British who said only Keshdharis will be taken into the Sikh cult. Otherwise, Hindus and Keshdharis and Namdharis both were good. The entire cleavage was created by the British. The Sikh soldiers at that time were very upset at being, because they felt they had been beaten by treachery. They were very angry with the Bhaiyas of Bihar and Oudh and Bengal, which were the British East Army, the East India Company soldiers. So they were angry at their loss, and therefore the British used them against the others, against the Biharis of Oudh and Bengal and all that. So, they have very deliberately tried they gave the Sikhs a separate electorate. They tried to foster separatism amongst the Muslims. Pakistan broke away. Amongst the Sikhs, we had the problem in Punjab. Amongst the Northeast tribals, we had the insurgencies. And they gave a separate electorate to the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. And you are having problems with the Bhim army and the others. People are trying to break India along those lines. All the gift of the British. So even the separatism feeling amongst the Sikhs was induced by the British. And people have then added to it because they followed the divide and rule policy. The present BJP government is doing a lot to build bridges to the hurt of the Sikh community and to get them back into the fold where they truly belong. Where they truly belong. They are the greatest Indians. The best of your Indian soldiery is amongst the Sikhs.
Said a number of times, in fact, I have said that the British brought in a 12th guru, Arthur McAuliffe. And it was the followers of Arthur McAuliffe who were ruling the roost in the what is called the political hierarchy. So that also people need to know, because I think a lot of people in Punjab themselves, a lot of Sikhs also do not know what was done by Arthur McAuliffe and his devices. The next question, Kripal Patel, why Sardar Patel and Subhash Chandra Bose dignity for nation undervalued and Mahatma Gandhi and Nehru dignity is overvalued in our history? This, I think, has been answered already in our discussions. Would you still like to take
all
this?
all that I would say is, you see, after the Second World War, the Germans were pacified. The Japanese, who were a great fighting nation, were totally pacified. The present day Germany and Japan are not an echo of the kind of fighting spirit that they had. It was destroyed by the Americans, by the British. Even the Indian fighting spirit was destroyed before the British handed over power, because they imposed the Nehru-Gandhi dynasty, that ideology of pacifism, peace, panchashil, ahimsa, non-violence. Thank God the Chinese came and gave us a kick on our pants in 1960. And that broke us out of that spell of Gandhianism. Otherwise, if we had continued, we would have been destroyed by Pakistan by now. Fortunately for us, reality set in. Reality set in 1962. We need a lot to be grateful to the Chinese.
There's also, that's as another aspect of this, some people say that if the Chinese had not come, then India would have become an extension of Soviet Union, and Nehru would have turned it communist. That's that's also
Yes,
we were saved. We were
no, no,
saved by
but
China.
let me also give you a very interesting point you have raised. How did the Soviet Union get such a hold on India? Because they had the secret of Subhash Chandra Bose. I hope you know there was no air crash. All that air crash theory is bunkum. The Justice Mukherjee Commission had gone to Taiwan and they had found out 3 months aage piche air crash nahi hua. The Japanese had concocted that story to help Netaji escape to the Soviet Union. He escaped to the Soviet Union via Manchuria. He had reached Siberia. In Siberia, they had established a embassy of the Azad Hind government. That is where he went in August 1945. He was there in the Soviet Union in Siberia. He made 3 broadcasts from there, which were recorded in India in Kolkata. One was in November 1945, next in December 1945, then in January 46. Last broadcast was February 46. Then the British got to know he was there. They went to Stalin. They showed him photos of Hitler and Bose. Stalin hated Hitler and he ordered that Netaji be put in prison. So the British said, we don't want him back. We want to interrogate him in your Siberian prison. So in cell number 45, in the Luzansky concentration camp in Siberia, the British team went and they tortured him to death to extract information. He was tortured to death. His body has been buried in an unknown, unmarked grave in Siberia. And to help the Indian people forget, Nehru told them he died in an air crash.
So
He
very
died in an air
convenient.
crash. So गड़े हुए मुर्दे चीखें थोड़ी ना मारते हैं अगर उनको torture किया. This is what has been done. The Soviets knew this and they twisted the tail of Nehru.
The next question is, Subodh is asking, why no Bharat Ratna for Veer Savarkar? Though we're not discussing Veer Savarkar, we could also ask, why no Bharat Ratna for Subhash Chandra Bose?
A lot of people feel he was far above and beyond the Bharat Ratna. The first Bharat Ratna was, Nehru gave it to himself. we don't want to put him in the same league, but obviously, if there is a highest national award, I think it deserves to go to him.
Right,
Any day. Any day.
Exactly. Maddie, why is there reluctance to accept Netaji as having brought us our freedom even in a nationalistic government? Should we hit the streets in protest?
Look, I have met the Prime Minister personally. The Bose family had been invited to the Prime Minister's residence. And let me tell you, no other Prime Minister I have seen in recent history who is as committed to getting the truth about Netaji out. After all, he ordered the declassification of files. Unfortunately, the bureaucracy has been able to stymie it. Nothing has been declassified from the Intelligence Bureau, RAW, etc. And only the files which are already been given to the various commissions of inquiry, they have been made open. Nothing Russia has given and nothing the British have given because they said 100 years ke baad hi ye hoga. So the truth is there in the Soviet Union, former, now Russia. The truth is there in those files. They are not giving them. We asked, the Prime Minister had gone to ask. They have denied all knowledge. Unless they are really pressed, they will not give. They will not give. And therefore, this secret continues. But a lot is being done. And may I just inform people, 21st of October was the day that Netaji had declared independence. The Americans celebrate Independence Day on 4th of July, right? That is not the day the British left America. That is the day the Declaration of Independence was made by Thomas Jefferson and others and signed. That is, observed as your Independence Day. So 21st October rightly is our Independence Day when the first Azad Hind government was formed in Singapore in 1943. and Netaji became the first Prime Minister of free India, that independent government in exile, and it was recognized by 11 countries, Germany, Japan, Italy, and including Soviet Union, which was in the Allied camp. All right. So, correctly speaking, Independence Day must be on 21st October. I am happy to report to you that 2019, the Prime Minister himself had come on 21st October to the Red Fort. He had hoisted the national flag with an INA veteran, Naik Lalti Ram, who is 100 years old today. And this year again we held a function at the Red Fort. I had gone. The Culture Minister Prahlad Patel Sahab had come, and we had a function to honor the INA martyrs, the INA veterans. There are still 2 INA veterans who came. Naik Lalti Ram, 100 years, Naik Sipahi Parmanand Yadav, almost 101 now. Okay? They are still alive and kicking. And they stand straighter than you and I do. That is because of the Haryana ghee. So it is being done. Next year is the 125th anniversary of Netaji's birth. And the government plans to celebrate in a big way. The plans are being finalized. We have appealed to the government. And may I hold my hands and appeal to all of you out there who are listening to this. There is behind India Gate an empty canopy, एक खाली छतरी है साहब, जहां किंग जॉर्ज 5 का स्टैचू होता था. उसके ठीक सामने वॉर मेमोरियल बना है. भारतीय सेना हमारे वहां पे नेताजी का स्टैचू लगा दिया जाए. अभी तक 72, 73, 74 साल से वो खाली पड़ा. Put his statue on राजपथ. हमको चावड़ी बाजार में नहीं चाहिए था. उनके 125वें जन्म दिवस, जो कि 23 जनवरी 2021 को आएगा, अगर प्रधानमंत्री जी नेताजी के स्टैचू का अनावरण करें, वो जो छतरी है किंग जॉर्ज 5 वाली, देश मैं समझता हूं वी वुड हैव कम से कम प्रायश्चित तो किया होगा हमने. जो 26,000 सैनिक तड़फ के मर गए, जो नेताजी जिसने आजादी दिलाई, जिसको तड़फा के मारा गया, उसकी आत्मा कम से कम शांति तो पाएगी. और ये कोई बड़ी चीज नहीं है साहब. हम 100,000 फुट का स्टैचू नहीं मांग रहे. आप 6 फुट, जो वो 6 फुट के थे, 5 फुट 11 इंच, आप उतना बड़ा स्टैचू लगा दीजिए जहां किंग जॉर्ज 5 का पुतला होता.
बिल्कुल सही कह रहे हैं जनरल बख्शी. मैं भी आप सभी लोगों से अनुरोध करूंगा, आई विल अपील टू ऑल ऑफ यू, कि दैट इज लेट अस स्टार्ट दिस मूवमेंट under the guidance of General Bakshi. We will start this movement and we will take it to the correct
logical conclusion.
Logical conclusion, right denouement, finality, whatever you may say. लेकिन इसको अंजाम तक पहुंचाना है. अगला सवाल ले लेते हैं अभिमन्यु मोहिते जी. आफ्टर 1965 war, did India decide to break Pakistan? I think is it not? It is not really relevant, but still, if you would like to
slightly out, but all that I'd say is कि we had definitely learnt our lesson. जो कुछ हमने लिया था, हाजी पीर पास वगैरह, सियालकोट के पास तक पहुंच गए थे, लाहौर के पास तक, इथोगिल कैनाल तक पहुंच गए थे, वो सब वापस देना पड़ा. And that is the time we realized that था कोई शांति चैन नहीं मिलेगा जब तक पाकिस्तान से प्रॉपरली डील ना किया जाए. 1971 में पाकिस्तान ने हमको वो मौका दिया, बांग्लादेश ईस्ट पाकिस्तान में जेनोसाइड करके, और कोई 13 मिलियन जो थे वो बांग्लादेशी खदेड़ दिए हमारे देश में, ताकि भुखमरी हो, यहाँ पे हमारी इकोनॉमी का भट्टा बैठ जाए, और कोई चारा नहीं छोड़ा कि पाकिस्तान को जवाब दिया जाए. एंड इंदिरा गांधी, टू हर क्रेडिट, देन ब्रोक पाकिस्तान इन 2. और अगर किसी को शक है कि ये वो जमाना है when people could come and burn our cities, destroy our temples, that era is over. 71 में we broke Pakistan in 2 in just 14 days. We created a new nation state with a force of arms. 93,000 कैदी हमारी गिरफ्त में थे. ये है भारत की ताकत.
Kaustav, sir, why Modi government didn't reveal the truth on Netaji's death till date? And why Gandhi, who had no contribution to independence, still worshipped like God by our PM. हम तो इतनी देर से यही बात कर रहे हैं, इसको आप कुछ और ऐड करना चाहेंगे?
यू सी, मैं सिर्फ इतना ऐड करना चाहूंगा कि अगर हम एक अपील और करें अपने नेताओं को कि प्राइम मिनिस्टर जस्ट इंक्वायरी कमिशन, the only commission that went to the ground in Taiwan to check that air crash was the Mukherjee Commission. Unfortunately, जब तक वो मुखर्जी कमीशन की रिपोर्ट आई, वाजपेयी जी की सरकार जा चुकी, कांग्रेस की सरकार ने उसको पार्लियामेंट के सामने भी नहीं रखा, रिजेक्ट कर दिया, कचरे के डब्बे में डाल दिया। प्रधानमंत्री वाजपेयी की आदेश दी हुई जो कमीशन थी, कचरे के डब्बे में फेंक दी गई। उसको वहां से निकाला जाए और पार्लियामेंट के सामने फिर रखा जाए। ये हमारी मांग होनी चाहिए कि 125वें साल में हम अपने पाप थोड़े धोएं, थोड़ा प्रायश्चित करें। नेताजी की मूर्ति जॉर्ज 5 की कैनोपी के नीचे लगाएं, वॉर मेमोरियल के सामने लगाएं, राजपथ पे लगाएं। जस्टिस मुखर्जी कमीशन रिपोर्ट कचरे के डब्बे से निकाले। जो बेइज्जती करी कांग्रेस सरकार ने उसको, वाजपेयी जी की, उसको भी आपको धोना पड़ेगा और वापस पार्लियामेंट के सामने लाएं। क्या उसमें इतनी अंग्रेजी क्या है?
Correct. Absolutely correct. I think this is another demand which can be justifiably made. Next question. Nishikant ji कह रहे हैं, my nana fought on Burma front and my wife's grandfather fought in Italy under Tika Khan. Why Indian Army didn't go for mutiny in favor of INA?
Look, the Indian Army had started that process. ना, मैंने वही आपको बताया है कि रॉयल इंडियन नेवी में हो चुकी थी, हमारे कुछ यूनिटों में हो चुकी थी, और तब अंग्रेजों ने बोला था हम तो जा रहे हैं, प्लीज प्लीज रुक जाइए, हम तो जा ही रहे हैं, आप क्यों म्यूटनी कर, हम जा रहे हैं। And that is why that did not take place. If you are free today, please thank the Indian Armed Forces.
Correct.
Thank the Indian Armed Forces for your freedom.
Ajay Sharma says, keep up the great work, Sanjay ji. Thank you very much. Kudos to Major General Bakshi for his service to the nation when in uniform and now as a veteran. So it's a compliment to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Next one, Anirudh. INA officers and Bose were highly secular. H. Rahman joined Pak and waged war against India in 1948. Are we overstating the nationalism aspect?
Look, the simple fact is that Netaji was trying to keep the country together. He did not want partition. And frankly, a leader like him could possibly have pulled it off. Now it is impossible. Impossible. Too much blood has been shed. बहुत खून बह चुका है साहब, और अब वो चीज शायद उस दर्जे पे नहीं आती। और पाकिस्तान और भारत का तो एक होना तो आउट ऑफ द प्लेस। Pakistan can break up into 4 and keep fighting. Baluchistan with Sindh and Punjab and Sairekia and Pakhtunkhwa. That is their problem. And they are already on the way to that. 2 में तो टूट चुके ही हैं, अब 4 टुकड़े और होंगे, लेकिन ये विलय होगा मुझे अगले 100 साल में तो नहीं।
विलय तो साहब बांग्लादेश का भी हिंदुस्तान में नहीं हुआ जब बांग्लादेश को हमने अलग किया था, तो this is quite out of question. You're right. Shankar Kumar Chatterjee, the transfer of power documents have not been declassified in totality. If they are the Faustian deals made will get known. Why isn't the issue being taken up? Are you there, General Bakshi? I think we just lost him again. Okay, it's coming back on. So just to hold on. Yes, sir. Did you hear the question? Shall I repeat it?
Just repeat the question. I didn't get the question.
The transfer of power documents have not been declassified in totality. If they are the Faustian deals made, will get known. Why isn't the issue being taken up?
By and large, the transfer of power archives have been declassified to the best of my knowledge. There may be some these under the table deals, we'll have to wait for 100 years to be completed before they can be declassified. A lot of files pertaining to Netaji and the INA have not been declassified in England, back home in England. So we have to wait till the 100 years are over before they are declassified. They are deemed too sensitive. But the simple fact is that 15th August is not, sir, not your Independence Day. It is Dominion Day. Dominion status मिला आपको, Dominion of the British Empire with the British Governor General, अंग्रेज गवर्नर जनरल, ऐसी चाटुकारी, अंग्रेज आर्मी चीफ, अंग्रेज ब्रिटिश चीफ, अंग्रेज इंडियन एयरफोर्स चीफ, और नेवी और एयरफोर्स में तो नेहरू जी ने 68 तक रखा ब्रिटिश चीफ्स, राइट। वो तो इतने प्यार था अंग्रेजों से कि अंग्रेजों के सिवा कोई राज नहीं कर सकता। तो आप कैसे राज कर रहे हैं? You know, one of the very interesting stories is that he didn't want an Indian to become an Indian army chief. That is the time when they found that the British army chief here was talking to the British army chief in the Pakistan army, and they were, whatever plans we made were being conveyed by the British army chief here to the British army chief in Pakistan. And then we tape recorded those messages. Then we called them like, "Bhai sahab, I think we don't need you." That is the time Karyappa was the senior most Indian officer, and General Mahadev Singh. There was a discussion when Karyappa wasn't there. General Mahadev Singh was there. He said, "How can we do away with the British army chief?" So he said, "Sir, then why don't you get a British? Why are you the prime minister?" You know what Mahadev Singh said to him? Why are you the prime minister? You are an Indian. If you are so fond of the British that you want only British army chiefs, you think they can rule, sir? How is it that you can rule as an Indian as a prime minister? So Nehru was stung. He said, "Can you become the chief? You want to become the chief? Can you take it on?" He said, "Sir, there is somebody senior to me, and I would suggest you make Karyappa the chief." And Karyappa was made the chief, and Mahadev Singh became the next chief. All right, look at the dignity among gentlemen. He didn't just because he was with the prime minister, Karyappa ko banao. Karyappa became the army chief because we had to fight wars, and you can't fight wars with chiefs who are and we should have gotten rid of the other chiefs also earlier. The last chief to go was the British this thing. And I hope you know that till 1968, the Indian Intelligence Bureau was reporting to MI5 in London. And MI5 had a liaison office in Delhi to be kept abreast of all that was going on, and all that Nehru was doing and not doing was reported to them. How free, how independent you were is anybody's guess.
Nehru the Faithful. I am running a series. It is called Blunder Boy Nehru, and I've done 3 editions. And the 4th one is in the offing. So Blunder Boy Nehru. Now the last question coming up, sir. This is Abhimanyu Moite. Are we going to see Indo-Pak war in near future?
Sorry, just say that first part again.
Are we going to see Indo-Pak war in near future?
I would be surprised if there is none. Let me put it as simply as that. I would be very surprised if there is none. It's bound. You are heading for a Mahabharat. You can do all the Shanti part that you want to do. You can keep talking of Ahimsa till you are blue in the face. But Mahabharat, okay rahe.
Right, sir. With that, we come to the end of this session. Wonderful having you on Jaipur Dialogues. And I once again take the focus of the audience to this wonderful book that General Bakshi has written. Please try and read this. It is available on Amazon in both the formats, paperback as well as in Kindle. And also, please do not forget to share, subscribe, like, and also to press the bell icon of this video. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, Vande Mataram.
Press the bell icon on YouTube and don't miss another update.